Wednesday, and that means it's news day. It's August 6, 2025, and this is episode 523. Today we have Beth and Andy, and I am Jimmy, and this is the Daily AI Show. Thank you, everyone, for joining the live stream, and to all of you who are watching a little later. If you haven't already, click the bell, like, subscribe, and join the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com. Okay. So let's do a quick lightning round of stories for everyone before we delve into this week's news adventures. Andy, what lightning round do you have?
Okay, I just wanted to follow on the one of the top news stories that you alluded to here, which is OpenAI finally releasing their open source models. But as background to that, I'm adding a couple of additional points. They released two models. 120 billion parameter open source model and a 20 billion that is suitable to run on a laptop. In fact, Microsoft has added chat or GPT-OSS 20B, their small one, to Windows. You can now apply that to Windows on a local machine. So Microsoft jumped on that. Of course, there's a close collaboration decaying at some level as Microsoft and OpenAI, find themselves in direct competition in many ways. But Microsoft has already made available OSS 20B, and you can put it on a Windows laptop. And it's a highly scoring model. But I wanted to mention some other things about OpenAI. And first and most importantly, we just very recently announced that ChatGPT had 500 million weekly active users. So in any given week, 500 million people are using ChatGPT services. Well, it's now up to 700 million just a few months later. And their valuation in a new round is soaring to over $500 billion, which is a phenomenal thing for a private company to ultimately, eventually, presumably, they'll go public, and their valuation when they go public will set new records. So anyway, that's my additions to the OpenAI big news, their release of OSS, their open source model system.
Beth, what is your lightning story for today?
My lightning story for today is that Google came to play as well, and Google released DeepThink for Ultra subscribers. So this Google has been really great about seemingly making really like high-end models available to everyone, either for free through their AI studio, because but then they train on your requests, right? It's free, therefore you are the you're the product, and then generally releasing the model but at a lower usage rate for their advanced subscribers, right? And this is the first time. This is definitely drawing a line in the sand, right? If you're willing to pay $250 a month, then you get access to the best. And if you're not, and you pay $20 or $30 a month, then you get access to really, really good. That is that's my lightning explanation of Google's.
And my lightning round story is, as of August 2nd, the EU AI Act has been fully initiated. And what that means in broad strokes is that anyone in the EU, any operator, any developer in the EU and uses or sells their product in the EU is bound by this EU AI Act. A couple of things is they identify who's affected: providers, deployers, importers and distributors, and then downstream users. They have a few risk categories. This is how they identify AI risk. There's unacceptable risk, high risk, limited risk, and minimal risk. So unacceptable risk is straight out banned. Things like, excuse me, real-time biometric ID data for the public, social scoring, um, emotional recognition in workplaces, things like that. High risk is strict requirements, systems used for recruitment, so the HR hiring cycle, things like that, healthcare, finance. Limited risk, there's transparency obligations. Users will be notified when interacting with AI and stuff like that. And then minimum risk means there really isn't anything that's covering it. The main takeaways to remember about the act is you must have transparency. So users must be clearly informed when content is generated by AI. Training data disclosures. Providers must publish public summaries of the data used to train models. Documentation. Technical documentation includes training, evaluation, and deployment. Must be kept and made available to regulators and downstream users. Risk mitigation. Systemic risk assessment and reduction and mitigation procedures must be in place. This is pretty much in line with any like SOC 2 enterprise level security. And then copyright policy. Firms must respect EU copyright law in AI training and development and deployment. So we shall see what kind of effects this has on the foundational AI developers and how they deploy to the EU and things like that. Mistral is famous for noting that they're the only game in town in the EU that guarantees that they have met all of the EU AI Act requirements. So we'll see what rolls out from there. Okay, so this is this has been our lightning round. Everybody got to introduce a quick story, but now let's delve a little deeper. Andy, what's your story of fiery passion for today?
Okay, so one of the most concerning areas of deterioration in the trustworthiness of our reality is the emergence of really, really rapid and highly performing deep fakes of people, and you can imagine in every realm, whether it's non-consensual pornography about you or it's political persona being shown on TV to be apparently saying something really atrocious. Deep fakes and deep fake detection are a really important arena of protection ultimately. And out of a small university in California, UC Riverside, they have come up with, in concert with Google, okay, so Google researchers are involved in this thing, a universal video deepfake detector in real time that achieves 98% detection. That's a very high level of detection. And so this is a doctoral candidate at UC Riverside, a fellow named Rohit Kundu, being guided by Professor Amit Roy Chowdhury. And what their system can do is it can identify face swap deep fakes, a traditional manipulation, like put my face on somebody else's. Fully synthetic AI generated videos created from scratch. It'll identify those. It'll identify background manipulations, altered environments or contexts, like put me somewhere where I wasn't. Videos without human faces. Most of the AI deepfake detectors to date have been focused on facial features and seeing oddities, anomalies about the facial representations. But this looks at the entire image in real time. And so there's all kinds of combos that deep fakers can do. This one seems to catch them all because it's looking simultaneously across the thing. So It can do content moderation on social media platforms. It'll do fact checking for news organizations. I've spoken about this as something that I really want. Like whenever I see something in my TikTok feed, I would like to have a real-time deepfake detector saying, oh no, this didn't really happen, right? Or this is an AI generated image. So anyway, there's lots of different things. Financial fraud detection, where, remember the story where, a Zoom video was conducted and there were actual real-time generations of apparently the CFO and the CEO of the company talking to somebody and persuading them in real time to send $24 million to a certain account abroad. And that actually happened. If this were implemented in real time on that system, then it would have detected that these were in real time being generated as representations, but they were AI generated. Okay, so this is really important, and I think this is a breakthrough compared to what we knew before. So it's a leap forward in the AI detection arms race, and we know that AI generated fakes are increasingly sophisticated, and this is a collaboration between UC Riverside and Google, and that means that this could find its way to market much more directly than just a single research lab doing something along these lines. And this is probably not the only one. This is just what was announced this week, right? So there are many people in academic research and in labs working on this problem, and eventually we will get to real-time fact checking, or AI detection at least. And this is good news about that.
Yeah, I'm really hoping to see the GitHub repo really soon, so we can integrate it into our own projects. I'm hoping that it's open source. I know Google worked on it. I'm assuming they're going to be releasing it as part of their coalition that they've got with Microsoft and Adobe that deals with digital watermarking and that kind of thing. This would be a great layer on top of that. But yeah, I'm hoping they release it in an open source sense so that people can take advantage of it and really put it through its tests to see if there's something that it's not, good for, or does it, how many false positives does it throw when it comes to a certain kind of segment or section or something like that.
That was my question too. It sounded like it has a really high accuracy rate for detecting when something is AI generated, but does that correspond to a high inaccuracy rate when it's not AI generated, right? I don't because that's the other piece for me, right?
Right. Yeah, I suspect that the 98% detection is if it was AI generated, 98% of the time it gets it. But if it, what's its false positive rate? Yeah,
right.
That wasn't announced, at least at the news level.
Which probably means that it was not tiny, because that would be news. That would be actually really important as well. All right. Yeah.
Fiery passion.
Fiery passion. My fiery passion story. I'm like rethinking it. But I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. Perplexity has been accused by Cloudflare of ignoring "do not scrape this site." And we remember when Perplexity was just new, where it ignored you can see the subscriber only content, but you should not retrieve the subscriber only content. And this feels very much like that kind of piece where Perplexity functions still as like a upstart startup, gonna, run fast, break things, those sorts of things. It's from Cloudflare, so it is significant, right? Cloudflare is the one protecting your content if you say that you don't want it scraped, and it is intentionally bypassing it. So what the behavior that Cloudflare is noticing is that when Perplexity gets to a page where it is it's challenged on whether this is an automatic scraping thing, it changes its IP address that rotates and functions more like a human, right? Because it has agentic features that it's giving to all its subscribers. And this, I think, is a really interesting piece because Perplexity is now big enough that that's news, right? We're not hearing about tiny little organizations, and it's still functioning like it's a relatively small organization. I have not seen their response, but I think that's a place where we're going to go more and more as engines want what we were just talking about, right? As users want what we were just talking about, and like, is this accurate? Is this true? Did this happen? You're going to want that function to be able to go out and see, and that means that that means that the model has access to those things.
Well, a couple of weaves off of Perplexity on a more positive note than, circumnavigating Cloudflare's, restrictions or blocking rules that they announced several months ago. Perplexity now integrates with OpenTable. So using Perplexity, you can find and reserve a restaurant through natural language queries. So you can just ask your Perplexity voice interface to set you up for dinner. And OpenTable has a network of 60,000 global restaurants. So you can, no matter where you go, you can get a reservation using OpenTable through Perplexity. And the other thing is they acquired a company called Invisible. And that company is developing a multi-agent orchestration platform, which is kind of in the world of agents. What we're looking for is send out a multitude of agents with various directives and, then bring them all back in and aggregate the responses from each of the individual agents and present those. And that's probably going to scale the Comet browser for consumer and enterprise users using the Comet browser in an agentic mode. So Invisible's acquisition is probably part of their roadmap now, moving towards really comprehensive agents that work on the web.
Yeah, I think Perplexity in its play, of course, is trying to add more and more features that people will want to use. But I did want to highlight a couple of thoughts on the whole web scraping thing. Number one, web scraping isn't new. There have been programmatic and systematic systems and services that do web scraping. So what Perplexity is doing isn't necessarily new. Now, they're trying to get around certain things by still saying they have a clean nose and saying it's like, oh, but it's like a real user is using it, and trying to make that argument. So I'm not too not too confident with them on that. But what I'm interested in knowing is Cloudflare specifically just saying AI scrapers just because, and Perplexity's in the news because it's about AI and they are a large company, like you said, Beth? Where is the pushback on everything else? So I would like it to be wholly inclusive, saying we don't want it being web scraped at all, and let's identify these web scrapers as well. Now, do I think it's going to happen? No. I mean, they've already gone through, and this is a whole ask for forgiveness later kind of thing. So this might be more of a push from Cloudflare saying, hey, we are the defenders of your website. If you want us to stop shouting from the rooftops that you're doing something shady, then join our new program where the top 1% of 1% of highly visited websites will be able to recoup some costs from what AI web scraping and things like that.
But really, Like, do you? It feels like we're in. If we look at what people are saying based on their experiences of how people are finding their data, right? Do you really want to not be scraped? I understand why you would not want to be scraped, because then that content is given without them having to visit your data. But you're, I think we're in a position where data is not being visited anyway, right? Uh, I, there's a.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you
There's
really
definitely
just
that
want to like
trend,
take
right?
your ball home and like is that the thing? I don't think people have totally figured this out, but I'm not sure that not scraping at all. Like, if what you're saying is we only want people to access our data like people do, that's a short-term plan, y'all. Right?
Yeah. I to answer your question there, I think, and I think Greg says something, basic alignment. The internet is a public forum.
Mhm.
So if you need to lock down your information, if you need to monetize it in a certain fashion, then you need to lock it away. You need to have it accessible a different method. But if stuff is public, then stuff is public. I think we've been running on courtesy and politeness, and now AI has really brought to the forefront that nobody cares about courtesy and politeness when it comes to the internet, whether it be your data or anything like that. I'm not saying don't protect your data. Your data is valuable. Data is valuable. It's the new gold. It's the new crude oil, right? But you need to find a different method of either monetization or a different technology to present it, right? Things like it's probably one of the reasons why things like podcasts and Substack and these other platforms are a little more accessible, because um, it's either the data is given away free, the information is given away free, and through the various vectors and funnels that comes to your monetization paths, or you have it locked down and it's away. You have to actively have people go in, use their key to unlock the door and go through to share that information. So yeah, it's a difficult question, because the internet was never built to lock everything away. It's all there. It's the difference between the visible web, the deep web, and the dark web. It's all interconnected.
But there have always been paywalls and
Sure.
deep web, let's call it. Things
Yeah.
that you didn't have access to unless you registered with the server, and in some cases had to pay a subscription in order to have access to the data that's underlying that web page. So you can scrape the front door, but you can't go inside. So
Right.
that's always been a part of the design of the web. The web, yes, there's lots of free information on the web, but there's always been a protected layer of the web, and that's always been possible, and that's not new.
But the protected layer is also code, right? So
It's
in
databases
early
largely, like having access to Salesforce's data.
Right, but it's a code handshake. It's a code conversation, because there you can go to sites. Early on in Perplexity stuff, we realized that it could read.
Things
It
behind the
could,
paywalls, yeah, like
yeah.
publishers' documentation behind the paywalls. Just by having a single subscription, they could go in and look at everything.
Oh, is that why? Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I would presume that's how they did it, right?
Well,
I was like,
there are paywalls, and then there are paywalls, right?
right.
There's authentication systems and things like that, like OAuth and whatnot, and that that locks like your email, behind a paywall. And then there's the paywalls that are simply just visual blockers that load up on a web page, and for an average user to click past it, they have to like log in or whatnot to have that token. But most of those are bypassable by just changing how the information is presented. You can just get rid of that piece of JavaScript. But I think my general point was that this is as with all technology, and we're probably just being more aware of it now, it's an arms race, right? We saw this in ad blockers, right? Ads came up, ad blocker was created. They created a new version of ads and ad networks. That was blocked. Back and forth, back and forth. And recently, I heard that Google actually removed the famous uBlock origin from the extension store or whatever it is. And so yet another step in developing technology. So that's how I see this. Now, the biggest difference is that it is blatant. It's by billion-dollar companies, and it's happening at a massive rate, as opposed to people or individuals, going through this process. So, well,
and
I want to see how that develops.
So to that end, it's also the things that they've said that sites can do to not be scraped it's getting around those, right? So they've said, do these things and your content will not be scraped and available through Perplexity. And then it use its systems to use agentic features and then scrape. So that was also part of it. Like, if you do this, you're good. And nope. So
yeah, I think we should just make sure to realize that information in a public forum is public in one form or another. But that we really just have to wait to see how it unfolds. Okay, my story of fiery passion. One of my stories of fiery passion. I was really interested in 11 Labs. I'm so glad that they finally went into the music generation side of things. It sounds like, so as a little background, so 11 Labs, if you didn't know, is a leader in text-to-speech and speech manipulation with AI. And so it's one of the forerunners. It was an early unicorn, lots of investment in it, and it's got some great momentum in that space. They make fantastic products. A little on the expensive side, but it's good stuff. They just announced that they are releasing music generation. So we know that music generation's been around for a little bit, for a hot second in the AI space with things like Udio or Suno. The level or caliber of the kind of music that you can make is excellent. Very, very much more advanced than what we saw early on from like the first Google Labs kind of sound effects and things like that. And in so doing, they got the ire of various labels and artists saying that their AI was trained, their model was trained on their work, which is probably true. And so now they're embroiled in legal battles. Now, 11 Labs comes out while they're dealing with all of that with their own music generation, that they said their models are commercially safe because they worked with two groups. I believe it was Merlin. Merlin has artists like Adele, Nirvana, and Cobalt, which has like Beck and Childish Gambino. And these two labels or artist groups have worked with 11 Labs to provide the AI training data for them. So if you are concerned about commercial application, the copyright issue, 11 Labs' big selling factor is they're saying that this is all above board, right? So you don't have to worry about it. Now, I haven't gotten to try the actual model yet, but I listened to some of their demos. Now, admittedly, demos are the fineliest crafted versions of what their models can do, but it sounds great. It really does. I imagine people will have their own personal like radio stations, their live streams that will be going up. Which is a side note, Lo-Fi Girl, if you're familiar, was a lo-fi channel that started a few years ago on YouTube. It moved over to Spotify and all of these different platforms. But Lo-Fi Girl, the channel has been playing lo-fi music on a live stream consistently 24/7, and it was touted as a great way to listen to background music while you work or while you attend school. And the big tagline for that was "Lo-Fi Girl eventually graduated from college," and so they ended that chapter. Now, what's going to happen later, I don't know. But how that ties in is that is a space that people saw that they wanted. Now, they went through a process of working with independent artists and creating their own music so that you'd have a 24/7 streaming lo-fi radio channel. If 11 Labs is up and up and it's relatively inexpensive, I see everyone doing their own 24/7 radio channel. Maybe some will just be more popular than others, because people don't like to do it themselves. They'd rather have someone else do it for them. But if you're interested, this might be the route for you, and this might also be a little more legitimacy for AI music designers. We just had a story last week about a AI based music designer who got signed up with an independent label to create music because they were the most popular on Suno. So there's definitely direction in this creative path, and I'm hoping we'll see more positive outcomes and more positive stories to show that people can lower the barrier and make music that they find interesting.
Cool.
Okay. So, Carl has joined us. Carl, perfect timing. What is your story of fiery passion for this week?
One thing that I just wanted to comment on your story. I mean, did you say that they had a artist, like as an influencer, whoever, partner with them on this, or no, you didn't have that?
So 11 Labs worked with two large artist labels.
Okay.
So Merlin and Cobalt. And I was just listing off some of the famous artists that are signed to those companies. And so that's the data that apparently their AI model for this music generation is trained off of.
What I'm waiting for, which I I was mountain biking on my time off, and I don't know where it came out of me. It just thought like, it'd be really cool is if they how we're talking about a new genre of, I guess, my type of music. Okay. Sorry, I was just told the dog's with you, has already pooped and peed, and you're on your own. Bye.
Nice. I love it.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
The news that is really important.
All the news.
So what I wanted to say is, like, when we talk about AI music, right? I was thinking, like, we've mentioned in the past, this is probably a new genre of artist, the ones who can create amazing AI music. I'm just waiting for Udio, Suno, 11 Labs, whoever's next, to partner with not, I wouldn't say a musician. I would say like this new quote unquote type of artist. I don't know who that is, but it'd be really cool. It's like, in addition to whatever we're unveiling, we want to introduce you to whoever that is. And then it's like, because there's a couple EDM folks that kind of pop into my head, but I don't know whoever that would be. And then they put like a super amazing artist that plays like amazing, like, or has created amazing music that's different, or a different genre, or a combined genre. I thought that would be a really cool next step.
I agree. And with that, how Music Radar, that was the article I was reading about. This one, they called them a music designer, an AI music designer, right? And they were recently signed to an indie label. Now, I can see more upon this path. I can see people who really had a talent for putting together certain genres of music and, really popping off. But I want to see the step after that. I want to see 11 Labs introduce their AI music designer. That it's an AI.
It's an
that's
AI
actually designing the music and playing it, right? Because we've got self-reinforced learning. We can see the emergence of AIs being able to be a little more creative, and for admittedly, it's going to be a little back and forth. It's going to cause lots of discussion, which is, no press is bad press, right? No publicity is bad publicity, kind of thing. But it's an interesting take on we've seen already elements of it, right? So there's the AI DJ from Spotify, and people in general seem to like it. And so what's the next step beyond the DJ is, here's a track that was created based upon the things that you've been listening to, or type of genre, or something like that, or just a whole radio station that's created that way. But I think the early steps, like you said, are going to be people who are using these tools to generate music. And
Justin's comment about Apple, I thought, now I don't know if it would piss off a lot of musicians, because I'm sure it will, if they strike a deal, right? If they, it's like, I strike a deal, we bought Suno, we bring, first we brought you the iTunes, next we brought you or first the iPod, iTunes, now we're unveiling the next step of music, which I have a feeling that if you go down that route, you're going to get panned, whatever that would be. But that would be the bold step if Apple's going to go that way to create something. I just thought that would be.
That's a good point, because Apple's in that position. Like Tim Cook just gave the big pep talk to the Apple staff saying, hang on there, we're going to be number one in this space, and Apple needs to, because Apple's, awesome and all that kind of stuff, just to keep people on board and give them enough time to get their act together. But I think, and part of that discussion is, Apple doesn't have time to develop something on their own right now. They got to buy their way in. So buying somebody like a Suno or a Udio, or even 11 Labs, though it's a unicorn now, they don't tend to like making big purchases, but they got to buy they got to buy a foundational AI model of some note and spend a lot of money on it. And they got to buy inroads into these different aspects of the AI space if they want to really perform or have really any chance in it, because that's got a shortcut development. Otherwise, it'll be literally 2 years at a minimum before they can really launch what they're what they need to.
So I know we could talk about this a long time. The one thing that I really wanted to make sure we all talked about was Genie 3. I think you mentioned it, Jimmy, at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, go for it.
So for those who haven't seen it, Google DeepMind unveiled Genie 3, a new frontier of like world modeling, where you can create worlds just with a prompt, which I thought was pretty amazing. And I think it has memory over time, so the environment remembers what was created, and kind of the objects stay put. I immediately went video game with this. That's really what I thought. I was like, that'd be so cool. Because I think we talked about this a while back, where you walk in, where a true role-playing game is, it isn't the world hasn't been predetermined. It's like it unveils as you, so when you take an action, the action is treated like a prompt, and then the prompt unveils the next thing. So no one's playthrough is exactly the same. It is very different. And yeah, you can do that with some like massive multiplayer games, but like this is taking it to a completely different way. And then on top of that too, we already know you can do this in like Minecraft, or in some cases, like how you're building stuff in Fortnite, but like people can now build kind of not just the levels, but how they want to interact with the video game eventually. So I thought that was really neat. My also next thoughts on this was more about, hey, is this where Jan LeCun is doing the frontier research? Whereas like, is the world models, is this where it is? So I thought,
I think world models in general is where Jan LeCun's expertise, or what he's imagining for AI development, that's definitely interconnected. I don't know if his research directly is influencing these different world models, because there's a couple of different approaches, right? So Google has their own approach with Genie, which mixes both their SEMA and their VO programs, right? Those models to help develop this overall Genie experience. And this is Genie 3. So, people, the big one about this one is that its fidelity is finally at a level where people can enjoy the experience, really. The first couple of versions, it's very low fidelity and for only a number of seconds. So this is like multiple minutes. Now,
do you want to do a screen share and just show those people who are watching what that looks like, as opposed to like a typical video generation?
Let's see
navigable
here.
environment. I have it up. I tried to share it before, but it didn't show up. Here,
let me
do it quickly.
I got it.
You got it? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I got it. If you want, I can play the video, I guess, if you...
New frontier for world natural language to generate a variety of worlds and explore them interactively, all with a single text prompt. Let's see what it's like to spend some time in a world. Genie 3 has real-time interactivity, meaning that the environment reacts to your movements and actions. You're not walking through a pre-built simulation. Everything you see here is being generated live as you explore it. And Genie 3 has world memory. That's why environments like this one stay consistent. World memory even carries over into your actions. For example, when I'm painting on this wall, my actions persist. I can look away and generate other parts of the world. But when I look back, the actions I took are still there. And Genie 3 enables promptable events, so you can add new events into your world on the fly. Something like another person, or transportation, or even something totally unexpected. You can use Genie to explore real-world physics and movement, and all kinds of unique environments. You can generate worlds with distinct geographies, historical settings, fictional environments, and even other characters. We're excited to see how Genie 3 can be used for next-generation gaming and entertainment. And that's just the beginning. Worlds can help with embodied research, training robotic agents before working in the real world, or simulating dangerous scenarios for disaster preparedness and emergency training. World models can open new pathways for learning, agriculture, manufacturing, and more. We're excited.
One thing that I wanted to mention about this is I think Google, I didn't pay attention to this part, but they're coming out with their new some type of goggles or glasses or anything like that. The combination of this and that makes a lot of sense. And just going back to our conversation about Apple, I was like, isn't this what Apple should have done? Like, forget trying to all the research should have went to something like this, then combine it with the Apple Vision Pro, and wouldn't have that have become even more amazing? Like when you say one more thing, and when you say truly remarkable, what are all the tag words that Apple would be? That, combine that, and instead of wasting $1 billion or $2 billion on your car, like imagine the amount of money that you could have spent on this, and what could that have meant for all the stuff that users could do and create. That's my expectation of Apple. And
Yeah, I think the issue there is that's definitely a hindsight thing. Apple didn't pay attention to AI, period. Now they're catching up. That's essentially the root of it, right? Now this model has great potential for the XR space, right? So XR is experiential reality. So AR, VR, that kind of overall umbrella term. So with being able to interact in procedurally generated worlds, that's essentially what this is, right? It doesn't need a fixed game engine to tell it how everything works. It generates that, it learns that. That's what the real world model part of it is for, right? In that video, when I first saw it, it really sparked the interest in the learning capabilities. So they mentioned a little bit about embodied AI and robots learning and whatnot. But what about that's a parallel track? But how about telepresence? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, doctors can remotely control these giant robots and look at the surgery that they're working on and whatnot and practice. They have to. It's a live video feed, and so you can't really have a drop in frames on that while they're working on you. But with something like this, you can do the training in an environment or do training for something that would require either one a very expensive and difficult to create simulation. It's like it's like too bad Brian's not here, but like a firefighter training. They have those 3-story towers where they have to go in and carry a body up and down the hole to experience what they have to do to clear a room and all those kinds of things. What if as part of that training you can have a simulator? How can this be a better simulator for pilots? Right? Because you can simulate the entire experience, walking around the plane, not just taking off and landing. You have all of that kind of stuff. The telepresence idea, where surgeons can practice the surgery, remotely, and have that high fidelity there. And of course, this will be revolutionary in the video game market as well, where we already talk about AI empowered personas and characters. And you mentioned, Carl, about everyone playing their own version. So maybe instead of an MMO, it's an MSO, right? Massive single player online, where everyone has their own world or instance that they're going into. I'd love it to see if you could bring in all your friends and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the point.
My last comment on this would be more of like, even though this is a preview, I still think it's a little like this kind of stuff is still a little bit far beyond like what
Oh,
can
for sure. It's from DeepMind. DeepMind is a research arm. This is like, hey, look, this is something that's good enough to show you. And now in a couple more years, you're going to be blown away when the actual product.
You have the something to do.
Yeah.
And this is Google, right? This is Google, the I don't even remember what it was anymore, but it had to do with a duck. And it seemed really great that the duck then could do duck things. And then when you looked at it and really dove deep or delved, that video that was showing that amazing ability was cut and took much longer and all of those things, right?
Okay. Go ahead.
Go. Nope, go, Jimmy.
I was just going to say that there's lots of news today, but one of the things I noticed about the news for this week is it's all about the models. So we kind of went into the OSS models, the open source models from OpenAI. The quick hits on that, Andy went mostly over everything there, but there was a couple of more things that I wanted to touch upon, and that is that the 120B is specifically able to be run on a single H100, and you can use Hugging Face to do that if you don't have your own H100. I mean, they cost $25,000, so maybe you don't. But like Andy said, the 20B and Microsoft, I didn't know about the Microsoft thing. That's amazing. But the 20B is supposed to run on your personal computer. So maybe this is a great opportunity for people to get into open source and start running these models locally. Because I can guarantee you, if you can get a quick or an easy UI package like Olama or something like that, running a local model on your system, and it's responsive to you, it'll probably be good enough to do a certain range of activities, right? You really only need the cloud-based models when you really need to crunch things, or you don't have a lot of time. So I'm hoping that this really pushes open source for people to use and integrate in all of their projects. The other model I wanted to talk about was Opus 4.1. Anthropic quietly released 4.1, probably in some other OpenAI news that we'll talk about in a second. But Opus 4.1 is a jump. It's a jump equivalent to like going from 3.7 Sonnet 3.7 to Sonnet 4.0. This model is a little more focused on being able to do more accurate analysis of your code and only makes the specific changes, not trying to change a whole bunch of things at once, which is what most of the coding models want to do. So I think for coders, this will be a good boon for them. Now, the rumors are this was announced because GPT-5 is imminent, right? Sam posted on X talking about some other subject and slyly put a screenshot of his chat, and it said GPT-5 in the upper corner where the models are. So we'll see if that comes out. And people have been speculating that it might come out tomorrow. Thursday seems to be the go-to day for OpenAI to release things. So we'll see. We'll see if OpenAI answers all of our rumors and they actually have a release on Thursday. I don't know. For some reason, I would rather them release it over the weekend. Because I imagine in my head that's less usage, but I could totally be wrong that people use models or use ChatGPT less on the weekends than during the week. But I'm excited to see it. We've been hearing about the hype for it for so long, but they technically didn't announce it before August 2nd. So If GPT-5 is going to roll out in the EU, it's no longer it's no longer grandfathered in. I think that's the term, as other models are, if they were released before the August 2nd date.
But don't we expect now when things get released, it's like, hey, it's released in the US, not EU yet. We'll talk to some people, see if we can figure it out, get y'all something. But
right. Okay, so who else has another story that they want to cover for today? Nobody? Okay.
Just before we close, I just want to add to Anthropic that the 4.1 release is an advance in the capabilities of Claude's leading edge capabilities in coding, and Claude Code subscriptions, which are the $200 a month subscriptions to their, in effect, development environment using Claude. They have now arrived at 400 million in annual recurring revenue, and most of that, nearly half of Anthropic's total of 3.1 billion in revenue, is due to ongoing adoption of Claude Code in GitHub Copilot and Cursor. So those platforms use Anthropic. I recently discovered and shared with my colleagues here that Claude is used in GenSpark as well, even though they don't promote that or reveal that openly. When things show up on the screen that have Anthropic on them, it's clear that that's what's running some of the systems of agents behind the scenes in GenSpark. So Anthropic's. We've talked about Google today, Google DeepMind like ahead. We've talked about OpenAI. We've talked about Perplexity, and you have to mention Anthropic because of their code releases, but they're also a major player in the world of vibe coding and just coding generally in development environments. So, major player.
Okay. So this week has been full of of foundational AI news, but I want to wrap it up with AI in science. All right, so two quick stories in AI and science. Number one, Columbia University School of Engineering and Applied Science was able to crack a meteorite secret, a material that defies heat. All right, so really quickly, there's glassy structures and then there's crystalline structures, and they react to heat differently. So there were some meteorites that were found, this very strange hybrid type material, and they couldn't understand how it could function because these two things are not normally found together, right? So what these scientists were able to do is they were able to use AI or machine learning techniques to find how this thermal conductivity works, right? They're able to run through these various simulations and using quantum computing mechanics to figure out how does this hybrid crystal glass function. And why this is important is we know that this forms in natural settings. We don't normally see it formed here, but the important part is that we're able to potentially see usage in things like thermal electrics, neuromorphic computing, and spintronics. So why that is important is because these are the development of technologies that are going to be more and more important in the future. So thermoelectronics, this is where wearable computers come in. Right, how these wearables, whether they're integrated in clothing or whatnot, are able to generate electricity from body heat. So these insights, you can start wearing more and more computing devices, and your own body heat is producing the electricity for them. Now, if that sounds like the Matrix to you, it is. Okay. And then things like spintronics. And this is interesting because I didn't know too much about this, but spintronics is basically a technology that exploits the quantum spin of electrons, and as well as their change for information processing. So, for example, there is a new next-gen computer memory called MRAM. And so that spintronics is a foundational concept in that new technology. What's so exciting about this stuff is it's definitely sound sci-fi, and we're seeing the future now, and all of those kinds of things, right? And neuromorphic computing is computing that's based off of the human brain. So understanding more concepts of how the structure and function of biological brains and its electrical fields and how it processes is always a important development, especially in AI when there's so much correlation and relation to how biological brains function. The other study is about batteries, right? The New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT, they used AI simulations to generate the multitude of different material combinations to test for these advancements in battery technology. So right now, batteries, lithium batteries, very expensive. The material, it's a rare earth material, requires so much time, effort, and pollution to dig this stuff up. These kinds of materials is what wars are being fought over. But through their process, through their AI simulations, they were able to run through so many different material combinations that they found combinations that work with multivariant ions, whereas a normal battery right now has a single electron that they can draw power from. But these multivariate ones can have 2 or 3. So that potentially multipliers of the capacity and the efficiency of these batteries. And if you don't have to use a material like lithium to make them, then that reduces the cost, reduce all the ancillary connected costs and things like that. Sort of like where the concept of these sodium batteries are being designed for the EV market, especially in the Chinese research. Sodium batteries, just as a quick primer, they are much easier to manufacture. They are much easier, they cost less and have less of an environmental impact to create, but they are a little larger and they don't have as much of a charge, but they're really cheap. So that technology is being developed for the battery uses. Okay, so that's where I'll leave the 2 AI and science stories. If there isn't anything else, let's wrap up. Great episode today. Great, fantastic discussions. Thank you so much for everybody who joined us in chat. Thank you to all of our viewers, subscribers, and to continue the discussion, please join our Slack community. Just head over to dailyaishowcommunity.com to sign up. Tomorrow we have AI and aging in place with dignity. And then Friday is our 2-year anniversary show. So we hope everybody will join us for both of those episodes. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow, and aloha.